sort of picked up this article recently that, this guy started his business smack right in the middle of the pandemic. But I guess the real reason why I wanted to share with you this article is I want to draw your attention to certain keywords you see on your screen right now. Now, if you look at what it says here, you notice it says a supportive network, all right? And the right digital tools, all right? Which is kind of in a way what GrooveAsia is all about, isn't it? I kind of like what Simon mentioned earlier on that, look, GrooveAsia is not just a software company per se. I think one of the key ingredients is, other than providing the softwares, which essentially are your digital tools, is also providing the mentorship and the support. And when you weigh those options, I guess it's going to be the difference that makes or breaks how you are planning to start your business or how you're intending to grow your business. All right, so this is just a very quick article. I won't go into details, but as you can see, there's a lot of these stories that you hear today. All right, where is my stop share button? There you are. Okay. So, for the most part, maybe some of you are thinking about sitting on the fence because you're wondering, is this a good time to start a business right now? Now, I'm going to try to do my best to impress upon you why I think now is one of the best times, in my opinion. If you have been in business or if you have tried to start a company, a business, say 15 years ago, you probably can relate to what I'm saying. But I guess the key is to ask ourselves, what are the factors that are contributing to a very high growth of new entrepreneurs that we are seeing in the marketplace today? Because I guess like me, over the last 2 years, you read the news, you've seen what's happening. A lot of businesses are closing down, right? But at the same time, what's interesting is you also see there's a new breed of entrepreneurs coming to the marketplace, all right? And if you ask me what's the key difference, I would say, people are talking about pivoting your business, adoption of technology, but I guess at some point you agree with me that, look, it's not about the strongest, it's not about the fittest or the strongest or the survivor these days. It's how quick you can adopt to how businesses are being practiced today, right? The adoption of technology. So I think one of the main reasons is we want to ask ourselves why, all right? So very quickly, the first part, I want to introduce the concept of direct-to-consumer economy. How many of you are instead of familiar, how many of you are not familiar with this term DTC? Now, this is going to be very important, especially if you're running a business which previously you are a bit of a hybrid brick and mortar model, or you are in the retail industry. How many of you are not familiar with DTC? Everyone is? All right. So let me just quickly explain to you what is DTC. All right. Now, in simple English term, DTC is direct to consumer. All right. Let me just type it out here. Consumer. So what does this mean? Now, if you think about it, over the last 2 years, the number one reason why a lot of businesses have to close their doors is there's a very huge supply chain involved in their business. What do I mean? All right. So I want you to imagine that, imagine that you are selling a product, right? You're selling a product. Your business is all about product rather than providing a service. And in the past, when you are selling a product, usually what do you need? You need either a retail shop, right? Or either that you are distributing your products to a department store and so on and so forth. Now, essentially, what this means is in that business model, you have a very huge volume of middlemen involved, right? You have your distributors, your suppliers, and at every stage, you've got to pay them some commissions, right? So that is one of the things that kill off a lot of retail brick and mortar businesses. Other than that, if you have a retail shop, you usually have a rental cost and stuff like that. So you have a high rental cost, you need to pay your landlord, you have a huge layer in your supply chain. Now, by that supply chain, it also means that your profits are lesser, right? You got to pay this person, you got to pay the agent, and so on and so forth. Now, A lot of people get a bit confused by DTC with dropshipping. All right, dropshipping, I guess, in the last couple of years is another popular term that's popped up in the marketplace. But essentially, dropshipping is you are not producing, you're not manufacturing your own products, right? Basically, you're selling other people's products, like Amazon did it very well, stuff like that. So when I mentioned about DTC, I'm referring to building your own brand. Later, I'm going to cover a bit more in that area. Essentially, it's a bit related to white labeling your brand. And I'm going to explain why it is better to go that way in today's world, right? So what do people do usually also? I mean, platforms like Lazada, I guess Shopee is quite popular in this part of the world, Southeast Asia. I see a lot of people selling their products on these seller platforms. I'm not trying to say it's not a good thing, but what I'm trying to say is, you see, one of the reasons why a lot of people struggle in the startup phase is this word called unpredictability. All right. So what do I mean? You see, referrals are great for business, right? Putting your products to sell on seller platforms are great for business. But the issue here that we are going to talk about is it's very hard to forecast your revenue and forecast your sale. All right. You understand what I mean? Because you're putting your products there and you're depending on somebody else's traffic to sell your products. I don't think that is a very good way to go. So the DTC idea essentially is we want to cut off the middleman, right? And one of the reasons why you want to cut off the middleman is because you want to increase your margins, correct? Am I right to say that? And hence wise, if you're familiar with brands like Shopify or GrooveAsia, these are e-commerce platforms that have really grew in numbers over the last few years. Okay, so just to give a very quick introduction into DTC, the whole idea is you want to cut off the middleman. And when I share with people this, and I personally feel that in the next few years is a bit tricky if your business model is being a middleman, right? Like insurance agents. I think maybe in the next 10 years, we might not even need an insurance agent anymore or financial advisors. And I really urge people that, look, if we are still stuck in the so-called middleman era, you really, really have to go to think about how the future is going to be like. I think technology is going to change that game, and all this information about getting financial advice, what kind of insurance package you want to purchase and things like that is going to be all online. So I'm guessing that we are witnessing the era of direct to consumer, hence why DTC. Okay, so I think it's more important to say why DTC. Why now is the time for the DTC economy? We have already passed the stage that we depend a lot on middlemen to sell our products and services. So why DTC? Number one, I guess, is because of the rise of SaaS, right? Software as a service. Maybe let me ask you a question. How many of you have tried to build a website or hired somebody to build a website, say, 15 years ago? Anyone? Say 15 years ago, maybe in the year 2003, 2004. Anyone tried to build a website 15 years ago? Nick says self-taught, Dylan, me. So a couple of you, right? So here's another interesting thought. Back then, how much does it cost to build a website? Maybe in my personal experience, I think back then you're talking about easily anywhere from 10 grand to 15 grand, right? Where we are still pretty much new in the Web 1 world, 1.0 world, right? Nick agrees with me that he's been in the online business for 30 over years. So, and it's so painful to even think about building a website those days because, we're still talking about C++, you need skills like Java, Python and stuff like that. It's so painful, right? And I guess that's one of the reasons why a lot of business owners struggle back in, the years of 10, 15 years ago, so to speak. Okay, so what essentially is SaaS all about? I guess in layman's words is the introduction of digital tools to make life easy for people like you and me. Because if you think about that, having technology used to be very accessible to the big boys. You need to really be one of the big boys to build a certain level and a certain technology, especially in the online world, to do what you need to do, right? You need to have huge financial backing, right? So those days, only the big boys can build technology. These days, people like you and me, right, or anybody layman on the street can really start to put together a website as easy as this, because it's all about drag and drop, is user friendly. So the era of so-called technology is no longer just accessible to the big boys, the big players. These days, anybody can do it. And I want to keep my presentation short, because I know after this, after my slot, Nick and Ching is going to come on board. And for those of you who are new to Groove, or for those of you who are thinking about starting your own business, I think you really want to pay very close attention to what they have to share with you just now. Because I mean, it's weird to say, these days when I talk to people, I said building websites is all about drag and drop. Yes, a huge percentage of people, they get it, but there's a huge percentage of people that I talk to who still look at me and say, what the heck is drag and drop? All right. So if you have not seen that before, I guess later they will do a live demo and pay very close attention to that. All right. So the rise of SaaS industry is a huge factor that contributes to the shift to the DTC economy. That's number one. Now, number two is because of the Alibaba effect, right? I assume everybody have heard of Alibaba before. So the question is, what happened over the last few years? So let me share with you my personal experience, right? And this is going to be very important. If part of your business, you are building a product line, you are building a business based on OEM, all right? OEM means to say that you manufacture your own products, okay? So you see, was back then, this is more than 12 years ago, right? So I remember one of my first trips to China, I was looking for a manufacturer. And long story short is they either give me a very high MOQ, meaning to say that if they were to manufacture the products for me, they are asking me to commit anywhere from like 10,000 quantities and stuff like that, crazy amount of numbers. Now, back then, I was much younger. I didn't have that kind of money to say, okay, 10,000, let's go, because essentially there's a lot of risk, right? I mean, the last thing you want to do to manufacture products is you get like huge, crazy numbers, and then after that you struggle to sell it off, right? So those were the days back then. And another struggle is before Alibaba came along, it's so hard to find a manufacturer, wouldn't you agree? Correct. You see, at the end of the day, what Alibaba essentially did is the whole idea conceived with Jack Ma bringing the manufacturers to the rest of the world. Are you with me so far? So in a way, the world is more connected to manufacturers in China, all right, as compared to in the past. And there's good news and bad news for manufacturers. That's the truth. The truth is it opened up the doors to the world, right? It's easier to find a manufacturer these days. But the bad news, of course, is because of that growth or that change, suddenly all these manufacturers, they have more competitions. Are you with me so far? So back then, when you try to get your product manufactured in China, these guys give you a ridiculous quote. They ask you to commit ridiculous MOQ is because they knew that you don't have much choices. Are you with me so far? So it's all about who holds the power in the negotiation, right? But again, because of Alibaba these days, these guys know that, look, if they don't take your business, it's so much easier for you to go to somebody else. Do you agree? And I hate to say this. I guess everybody's aware that today China is one of the largest exporter in the world. I think they've overtook US in the last couple of years. And everything, or essentially almost everything I know of, is manufactured in China. All right. If you don't believe me, I want you to look at the back of your MacBook or the box of your iPhone, and it's going to tell you that it's designed in California, but is manufactured in China, right? And I guess the reason why this is happening because nobody wants to buy a $5,000 iPhone, right? So the only way products these days are priced at the kind of pricing that the average people could afford is because of the manufacturing scene that is happening in China. All right. But what does this mean? This means that these days it's easier to white label your products. And I kind of like the idea of white labeling your products is because, look, you have two choices, right? If you're thinking about short term, All right. Yes, you can work as an affiliate to promote somebody else's products, so to speak. That is the dropshipping model, correct? Now, if you are thinking long term, my advice is think about manufacturing your own products for the long term. And the answer is pretty simple. The reason why is if you are spending the next 2-3 years to build a business to promote somebody else's product, my question is, what if one day that product no longer exists and you have wasted 2-3 years building up somebody else's business and there's no longevity in the business? Are you with me so far? I'm that kind of guy where I start a business, whatever business, I try to think ahead 5 years later, 10 years later, what's the exit plan, so on and so forth. All right. So I really want you to consider about white labeling your business if you're thinking about going down the product line. All right. So I want to show you another example of, I want to show a brand. And if you are based in Malaysia, you might be familiar with this brand. Hold on. Guys, you'll be very surprised to know that these days, so many businesses manufacture their products in China, right? So let me bring your attention to the screen.